Hey friends, it's Corey from Hey Let's Make Stuff, back with another tutorial using my xTool S1. In today's video, we're going to be talking about how to use the RA2 Rotary Attachment. This is a lot of big words to say. This is a tool that you can use in your laser cutter to make cylindrical objects. For example, I am making today these beautiful tumblers using this tool, and honestly, I'm obsessed. This tool is specifically designed to work with xTool lasers. It is an xTool accessory. You can use it with your M1, your D1, your S1 like I'm using today, or even your P2. Because I am using my S1 for this tutorial is going to be specific to that machine. A lot of the things I'm telling you about will sort of apply to all of the machines, but if you have a different xTool, you are going to want to go and find some tutorials for a different xTool machine because the setup can be a little bit different. Now, I'm going to be honest, it took me months to get this out of the box. I actually did. I opened the box and then I looked at it and I said, oh, no. And I put it away because this is a lot of parts, a lot of small parts, a lot of technical looking parts. And so I was actually really intimidated by this particular tool. I went ahead and hopped on a call with one of my friends because she has the P2 and she got the RA2, and we learned to use it together. And as I was learning it, I was like, okay, this is not nearly as difficult as I thought it was going to be. And I definitely could have done it on my own. But I definitely felt like I had this sort of overwhelming, I don't want to do this about this particular tool. So if you have an xTool and you have this tool sitting in the box, this is my encouragement to you to get it out of the box because it is not quite as difficult as all of these pieces would suggest. For today's video, I'm going to do the most basic project because I think that was part of the problem for me is this tool can make all sorts of things. Of course, you can make tumblers, you can make coffee mugs, you can engrave glasses, like beer glasses, you can make ornaments, baseballs, baseball bats, rolling pins. I mean, there is just so much that you can do with this tool, and I was completely overwhelmed. So today's video is for the beginner who is looking at all of this and going, I can't. I'm going to show you just what you need to make a simple tumbler, and then in future videos, we're gonna go into how to make other things, tapered tumblers, beer glasses. I'm gonna make some ornaments around the holidays. All of these things that you can make with this tool, but they're a little bit more advanced. They just require a little bit more of this set. So today we're just gonna focus on the basics. I do have a free file for you for this project. This is a book-travert file. So this is for those of you who are readers, who are sort of introverts and you love to be around books. I realize I am doing a lot of book-themed projects lately. There is a reason for that, but I'm not gonna tell you what it is yet. But I'm a huge reader, so making book-themed projects is one of my favorites. You can grab this engraving file for free from my craft library. To access my craft library, go to heyletsmakestuff.com/library. There you can request the password. Once you have the password, you can enter it on that same page and log in. This is file L14, so laser 14, L14, and you can find it in one of two ways. The first is to click on the laser file button and you'll be taken down to the section for laser files and you can find L14. The second is to use the find function on your computer, so Command F if you're on a Mac, Control F if you're on a PC, and just search for L14 and you'll be taken right to the file. Once you find the file, you'll see 3 links. The first link is this download, so you'll download the file, it'll be in a zip and you can unzip it and use it with your laser. The second link is the blog post for this video if you'd like to read more, and the third link is for this video if you need to refer back to it. To make a straight-sided tumbler using this rotary tool, you need 4 supplies. You need the tumbler itself, you need the rotary tool, you need your laser, and then I highly recommend having a Mr. Clean magic eraser on hand because it makes cleanup so easy. Before we get into which parts we're going to need, let's talk a little bit more about this tumbler that I'm using. So this is a powder coated tumbler and it's going to basically engrave this tumbler. It's going to remove that powder coating to show the stainless steel underneath. For this project, you need a fully straight-sided tumbler. So you want the diameter at the top to be the same as the diameter at the bottom. I got a different set and the top diameter and the bottom diameter had a difference of about a quarter of an inch. They were almost straight-sided. However, when I went ahead to put it in my machine, while it was turning, it actually acted like a screw and sort of moved down these rollers, which we'll talk a little bit about here in a minute. But because of that, it wouldn't engrave the tumbler properly. So when you're looking for something to make as a beginner project using this tool, look for straight-sided tumblers. I'm linking to these in the description below this video because I really, really like them. Unfortunately, it seems like this particular company is going out of stock or out of business. I don't know. They had so many things that are all out of stock now, which makes me really disappointed because these are some really great colors. But there are lots of options on Amazon, and I'm sure you'll be able to find something that you like. Now, what I have here is the RA2 Pro. So this has more pieces than the standard RA2. So you may have fewer pieces than this. I'm just going to show you all the pieces that the Pro has, just because I have them all here. But if you have that regular RA2, you won't have all of these pieces. You can still make the project we're going to make today, though, using that simple RA2, not the RA2 Pro. So this piece here in the center is our main rotary tool. It has 3 settings, A, B, and C. For this project, we're just going to leave it on C. That's where it came. But if you flip it over, you can see that you can remove these screws and move these rollers closer together. So if you're doing something very skinny, rolling pin, or just something else that's skinnier than a normal tumbler, you can move these so that you can use different sized objects in your laser. There are also 3 cords up here. It depends on which machine you're using. So it comes with this helpful little card. If you're using this large one here, this is for the P2 or the M1. The xTool D1 Pro uses the one with all of these little white clips. And then my S1 uses this cord here. It's being held together with a rubber band since I've used it a bunch. But you'll want to make sure that you are choosing the right connection cable for your machine. To make this tumbler, you're only going to need this RA2 base and your cord. All of the rest of this is for making other types of projects, which is why I wanted to start with that tumbler. You can do this. You can use this centerpiece and the cord. Very easy. But let's talk about these other pieces as well. So we have this piece here, which has some rollers on it. This is for if you have a particularly long piece that you want to engrave. We also have a bunch of screws. We have this piece here, which is for using what is called chucks. So the chucks are actually over here. There's these little plastic pieces, and these allow you to do tapered projects and anything that basically isn't straight-sided. That combines with this and this and this to basically create a frame to hold the tumbler instead of the rollers. We also have this piece here along with these 3 pieces here, and these are for engraving round objects. So ornaments, baseballs, those sorts of things, you'll use these pieces. You'll also get a little tape measure as well as some screwdrivers. It also comes with an instruction book, which I found super helpful. There are measurements and all sorts of things in here that you'll want to read through. I've put everything else away. We just have our RA2 base piece here, as well as the cord for my specific machine. The other thing that you're going to need is the riser base for your xTool. So I talked about this in my xTool accessories video, and I talked about how to install it. So I will go ahead and link to that so that if you haven't installed your riser base, you can go ahead and do that. It's not very difficult. But basically this lifts your laser up high enough to be able to process these very thick objects. Before we put our rotary tool in the machine, let's plug in the piece that attaches to the rotary tool itself. So on the back, there is a little white connector piece, and you want to take the white connector piece on your particular cord and just plug it in. Now we can head over to our machine and set up the rotary tool. You're going to start by placing the rotary tool in the machine with the motor to the right. Get it as straight as possible in your machine. Then on my xTool S1, the port for the cord is actually on sort of the front inside of the machine. It's a little hard to see, but there's a little cover and you can open it up and plug it in. Then just place your tumbler on top of the rollers. Now we can move to xTool's Creative Space to set up our file. For this project, I'm using the new beta version of xTool's Creative Space. I will go ahead and share a link to this download. I really like this new Creative Space that they have here. I think it's an improvement over the old one, and I haven't really run across any glitches, so if you feel like trying out the beta, then I highly recommend it. The first thing we're going to do is change the mode. Instead of Process on Base Plate, we're going to change it to Use Rotary Attachment. This turns our canvas sideways, which makes sense because the top of our tumbler in our machine is going to be over here on the right, and the bottom of our tumbler is going to be over here on the left. In my xTool S1, it shows where my laser head is with this little plus sign here, this little red plus sign. It's one thing that I really like about my S1. I always know where the laser head is in comparison to my canvas. The next step in the xTool S1 is to measure the height of our material. So over here on the left, we have distance. Then walk over to the laser and actually move the laser head over the highest part of your tumbler. So basically anywhere along that sort of top ridge of your tumbler, the highest point. And then you can use the auto measure over here. So it looks like a little bullseye or crosshairs. Click that and it will measure how tall your project is. Now walk back to your laser and move the laser head to the top edge of your tumbler. Now we can add our file. So go up to the X, go to File, Import Image, and choose the image that you want to use. Now, like I said, our tumbler is actually running, left to right here. So I need to rotate my image. So I'm going to select my image, and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. Remember, the top is over here on the right and the bottom is on the left, so I want the top of my image over here on the right side. Then I'm going to center it along my X. Because this design is meant for a 20-ounce tumbler and it basically goes from top to bottom, I'm going to bump it right up against the X here. But if you have something smaller, like a single image, you may not want to bump it all the way up against the top. You want to figure out how to center it. You can draw yourself a box the size of your tumbler, so basically the height versus the circumference. And then you can put your designs in the middle of that. But because this is a full wrap, we can just center it right on that X. Now in this beta version, they have what is called the Easy Set panel, and I love this. This is where we set sort of our engraving parameters. So I've done a few different engravings here, and my favorite engraving parameters so far for these particular tumblers are 75% power, 300 speed, 1 pass, and then I like to bump up the lines per centimeter to 240. This will just give us a more detailed engrave. You may need to play around with these settings depending on what you are engraving, but for these tumblers, these settings worked beautifully. The other thing you want to check here is that your file is set to engrave. Because this is a PNG, engraving is our only option, but if you are uploading something like an SVG, you may have scoring and cutting options. You definitely don't want those, so make sure it's set to engrave. Then let's get out of this object screen and go back to processing. Double check everything looks good here. We are using that rotary attachment, we're using the roller and not the chuck, which I talked about earlier. We have measured our distance and everything looks good. Now we can hit process. It will take a few seconds to prepare the preview. And this looks good to me, but before we start, let's do one more thing, and that's framing. So I'm going to click the framing button up here in the upper right, and it shows us that the framing function is ready. So I'm going to walk over to my laser and I'm going to push the start button, and then the laser head is going to show me exactly where my image is going to go. It's going to rotate my tumbler, it's going to move from top to bottom, and if ever that laser head doesn't look like it's on the tumbler, you're going to want to make sure your tumbler is straight, that your image is the right size, all of these things. When I was testing this out, I didn't quite understand framing. And so the first tumbler that I made in here looks amazing, but there is an inch of blank space at the top and the design goes all the way off the bottom. So while this isn't terrible, I definitely didn't get it centered properly, and that's because I didn't use the framing. If I had used the framing, I would have seen that there was basically a ½ an inch of tumbler at the top that wasn't getting engraved, and that the bottom half of my laser, like the design, was going off the bottom. So I highly recommend using that framing and making sure that you're visually seeing exactly where that design is going to go inside your laser. Once your framing is completed, just click the button, and then you can click Start. Then you can walk over to your laser and hit the button. Once you're done engraving, your project may not look all that great. It depends on the type of coating it has, but a lot of times there will be a lot of charring. This is where that magic eraser comes in handy. Just use some warm water and your magic eraser to clean your tumbler. This is one of my favorite parts of the project, watching the tumbler go from like looking really charred and not very good to looking absolutely perfect as you clean it. Oh, it's really amazing. Then all you have to do is add the lid and the straw and your tumbler is done. I love this project. I have to say I was so intimidated by this particular tool, and I really wish I had started using it sooner because these projects are amazing. Unlike something with vinyl, this is never going to wash off. It is just absolutely perfect. The detail is amazing, and Even though these are just the start of the projects you can make, I think this is enough to get you kind of like excited about using those more difficult parts of the tool. And that was my tutorial for making a very basic tumbler using the xTool RA2 Rotary Attachment. If you have any questions or need help troubleshooting, please leave those down in the comments. If you found this video helpful or inspiring, of course, give it a like. Follow my channel for more laser, Cricut, and sublimation content. I'll see you next time.